Are you a cricket coach frustrated by the physical level of your players? If so, then you're not alone. I know this from first-hand experience of having spoken to many cricket coaches who are frustrated that the physical side of a player's game is letting them down. And it's not only frustrating for the coach, but also for the player and the parent. For example, they could have a lack of calf strength, so they're collapsing at back foot contact. Or maybe they've got a weak core, so they've got a lot of lateral flexion when they're bowling. Or, and this is a very common one, they're really weak through the upper body, so they struggle to hit the ball off the square when they're batting. I've helped hundreds of youth cricketers to fix these exact issues, and I see my job as an S&C coach to give the player the physical skills in their toolbox to carry out the technical skills that the coach is asking them to deliver. So in this video, we're going to go through the 3 key areas that I see a lot of junior cricketers struggle. Going to give you as a coach some actionable exercises you can implement straight away into your sessions to help, and discuss a few other key areas we need to understand so that you can enhance a player's athletic development journey. And if you're new here, my name is Sam and I founded CricketFit to educate cricketers and coaches about cricket fitness and how it can help their game. So if you haven't already, hit subscribe so you can get access to a load of free content that we'll create and add on this channel. And also in the description below, I'll drop a link to CricketFit Teams, which is something I've built specifically for coaches, and it's launching in October. Register your interest and you'll get the first updates when they're back. So what are the top 3 areas that I see a lot of junior cricketers struggle with? Area number 1 is core strength. Now, core strength could be a whole video in itself, which I will link up here. But very simply, there's 3 different areas inside core strength that we focus on for our cricket. First one is anti-extension, so resisting this arching of our back, or the Raheem Sterling running position, as I often call it. Second one is anti-lateral flexion, so resisting this lateral flexion in here, which you see a lot of bowlers suffer with. And the third is anti-rotation, so being able to keep your hips and shoulders in line and resist them leaking energy by excessive movement. And I think in general, a lot of juniors are very weak through their core because ultimately they spend a lot of time sitting down now, and it's not just juniors, adults are weak through their core as well in general. But ultimately the goal of our core is to connect our lower and upper body. So if we're trying to rotate through our hips or we're trying to pivot over our hips when we're bowling, it's pretty crucial we can engage the core. So if there was one key area that I would focus on straight away with all junior cricketers, it would be to strengthen their core. And I'll give you a nice actionable exercise that you can do in the next section for this. Also, when it comes to preventing injuries, not just improving performance, the core is also very crucial. And you see a lot of lower back injuries in juniors and adults alike. And personally, I think if people improve their core strength, then those injuries would be reduced, or the risk of those injuries would be reduced. Because ultimately, the lower back is having to pick up the slack from the core not being able to engage. The second key area that I see a lot of juniors struggle with is reactive strength. And essentially what we mean by reactive strength is explosiveness and power off the floor. So if I was to do a pogo on the spot, I'm spending as little time on the floor as possible and generating force upwards again. Now what you'd see in a lot of juniors is they kind of sink down and they'd leak a lot of energy. So they're not springy or springy. What this means is then when they have to change direction or land or start sprinting or jump, they're not very powerful. Now, why we're so interested in reactive strength is because ultimately any cricketer is going to be a really good athlete first. And if you think about any athlete, if you look at the Olympics, they're going to be really springy, really reactive and really explosive. And a key thing we want to focus on for cricketers in particular is rate of force development, which is essentially how quickly you can produce force. So if we can train cricketers to be really quick, explosive, powerful athletes, then we're going to be able to snap our hips through and hit the ball harder, and we're also going to be able to get our arm over quicker and bowl the ball quicker. And the third and final area that I see a lot of juniors struggle is just general movement skills and agility. You'd be shocked, or maybe you wouldn't be shocked because you see it with your own eyes, how many juniors won't be able to do a good squat, or can't hold their body weight in a lunge, or can't even do a push-up. But in general, a lot of the cricketers that come to me to start with aren't the best athletes, and that's fine, but we need to look at the areas where they're weak and improve them. And a big one from a lot of parents, especially, and coaches, is agility in the field. And they see the ball get hit to their child or the player that they're coaching, and it's like they're on a Titanic and they're turning circles like this, and they're not explosive, they can't dive, they can't roll. And basic fundamental movements, which we should be able to do, as in rolling on the floor or changing direction and sprinting, children aren't able to do as well as they should be able to. And often, due to a lot of time sitting down, bad posture, and just general inactivity and not being taught how to do it properly, mobility is a real issue for children, which then means when they do want to do these general movement skills, such as a squat or changing direction, they're having to find different ways to move their body to achieve a goal. So our job as coaches is to give these players the physical skills and attributes, allowing them to perform the task that we want them to produce. But if you've got a child who is unable to touch their toes, if you're then expecting them to receive the ball in the field, get down and wing it in one smooth rhythmical motion, you're dreaming. Okay, so now we know the 3 areas where a lot of junior players struggle. Here are 3 exercises to focus on those particular areas. First up, let's look at core strength. So my favorite exercise for your core is called a dead bug. It's called a dead bug because you look like a dead bug. On your back, knees over your hips, arms, hands over your shoulders, shins horizontal, toes pulled to your shin. And then the goal here is to squeeze out any air from underneath your back. And we really want to push these ribs down into the floor, engage that core. And then we want to do one of a number of things. So we can move our arms, we can move our legs, we can move both at a time, we can move both in there. We could go opposite, we could go the same side. Whatever it is, we are needing to connect our lower body to our upper body and control that through our core. Now, anyone with a weak core, what you'll see is their ribs will go up to the sky and they'll arch their back and you'll be able to squeeze your hands under there. So it's really important you think about pushing that lower back into the floor, squeezing those abs. And then if these legs, this resting leg stays still, then that core is going to be engaged. If you see a lot of movement when doing this, then the core probably isn't doing its job. So that is always the number 1 exercise I go to start with junior players and adults who aren't engaging their core. And it's so simple that you can implement that at your sessions. The next area I want to focus on is our reactive strength. And for this, my favorite exercise to do, especially in a group scenario, is something called a snap down. So with a snap down, we're going to go up onto our toes, we're going to reach up and we're going to grab the sky, and then we're going to pull the sky down and sit in to an athletic position where we're here. Now, it's essentially the same as you're at fielding, you walk in and you get set. So it's working on that position, but the focus is on speed and controlling that downward movement. So a bad snap down, you'd see people be really slow and kind of sink down into it. But we want to be really quick, really sharp and hit the floor with speed. Now, what I love doing in this particular one, especially in a group scenario, is I say, right, if you land in this position, we're going to call that number 2. If I say left, you're gonna have your left foot forward, right foot back. If I say right, you're gonna have your right foot forward. Then you get everyone in a circle, tell them reach up and 2. Reach up and right, and so forth. So it's a really good exercise to get everyone switched on, but also get that reactive strength element of reacting to a stimulus, e.g. the coach saying left, right, or 2, and quickly being nice and athletic and getting into that position. Now, as far as a continuum of reactive strength exercises, simply snapping down and into there is probably the most simple thing you can do. But once again, if you're just trying to do this in a session to improve your players' reaction speed, their athletic positions, then it's a great go-to exercise. And finally, we just want to look at our general movement skills and athleticism. And my favorite exercise, which I think you can do to help this, but also just to help sprint technique in general, is something called a wall drive. For the purpose of this, I'm just going to use this pole, but imagine this is just a wall. Then you want to lean in, have your body at 45 degrees, knee nice and straight, heels off the floor, and then you're going to bring one leg up as if you're sprinting. Really push your ground away behind you with this foot and drive forward with your hands. Then all we're going to do is switch onto the other side. Don't let that knee bend, hips nice and tall. Switch, 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 switch. Now, if you can get into a really good position there, that's going to transfer through to your running. But also, why that's a really simple and good exercise is it engages your glutes, it engages your calf, gets your foot, ankle and Achilles nice and strong. Going to teach you to fully extend through that knee as well. And we're getting the whole lower body kinetic chain to work as one. Now, obviously, those 3 exercises alone aren't going to turn your junior athlete into Ben Stokes, but they're a good place to start, and you'd be surprised how difficult those 3 exercises are for junior athletes who haven't been exposed to S&C. So now we understand the areas where children are struggling, and we've got a few exercises that we can do to help them. Let's just cover off a few areas that I think are important for coaches to understand for children and junior athletes and junior cricketers. The first one is called PHV, or peak height velocity. Now, once again, this is a topic that we've covered a few times here on the channel, but essentially peak height velocity is that spell in the growth spurt or puberty when the child rapidly shoots up, which is normally around 15 in boys and a little bit earlier in girls. But as you'll know from coaching children yourself, this can be anywhere between 13 to maybe even 17. So the issue is we could have a 15-year-old who is past PHV, 15-year-old who's going through PHV, and a 15-year-old who is pre-PHV. And really, we need to treat all of those individuals as individuals, not just a 15-year-old. So if they're pre-PHV, our goal is to give them the foundational movement skills, squatting, hinging, lunging, and having really good control of their body, so that then when they go into PHV phase, they've got a much better chance of reducing their risk of injury. And on the other side of PHV, they're going to be a better athlete all round. This doesn't mean juniors can't lift weights and they shouldn't be doing S&C. If anything, we want them to be doing S&C to give them a better chance when they go through that growth spurt. It suddenly got very bright, so I'm sorry if I'm squinting. During PHV, this is where you see a lot of children start kind of moving like Bambi on ice. They haven't got coordination and they lose control of their limbs. And as you'd probably expect, this is a period when injury risk goes through the roof. And it's really important in this phase that we really control that player's workload. And this is the period where you'll get a lot of children say they've got shin splints or they've got kind of growing pains. So once again, manage that on a case-by-case basis and give them a little bit of sympathy, because they are going to probably be in pain during this period. And then post-PHV, we can essentially treat these players as young adults. So if they've got the foundational movement skills in place, then we can really load them up and progress them physically. Now, what's really cool in my job is I've seen quite a few players have come to me pre-PHV. I've given them the foundational movement skills at that period. I've worked with them and helped them during that tricky PHV stage where they have got pain, as most children do during that stage. But then on the other side, they come out and they are really strong, robust athletes. And by the time they're 16, 17, they're moving weights that 25-year-old men couldn't dream of, which is pretty cool. And they're doing that safely as well. They're not just ego lifting like a lot of 17 and 18-year-olds do. So I think that's my next point, is we don't need to wrap junior players in cotton wool. We need to manage their workload, but that's very different to them not doing any exercise at all. We need to be exposing them to jumping, running, sprinting, landing, changing direction, doing all of this stuff, being able to hold their weight on their in a push-up position. But I think a lot of coaches are guilty for not wanting to hurt a player, which is obviously fair enough, but in doing so, they actually kind of wrap that player in cotton wool and then don't expose them to anything. And then on the other side, when they do come out and go into a game and they need to sprint or need to change direction, they're going to get injured if they haven't done it. So it might be a case of lowering the intensity, pulling back the volume, but it doesn't mean we can't expose them to anything. And then final point in this little section is ultimately our job is to give that junior player the foundations to turn into a really, really strong adult athlete. We're not forcing them to do anything, but if we can encourage and motivate them to develop lifelong positive skills and habits through exercise and educate them along the way as to what to do, how to do it, and why it's important. From my point of view, as long as a player knows those three things and they're enjoying it along the way, then I'm happy. I hope that video has been helpful, and just to wrap up, I guess an important point to make is how can we help you? Ultimately, players come to you for your expertise in cricket, and they come to you to play cricket. But as we've covered in this video, the physical side of a player's game can be the thing that is most important before you get onto the really fun and intricate technical details. So I've built CrickFit teams to solve that issue and give you a plug and play athletic development system that you can implement into your coaching business. The most simple explanation of it is you provide the players and we provide the S&C coaching programs. If that sounds of interest to you, then hit the link in the description below where you can register your interest ahead of this going live in October 2025. And I'm guessing if you found this video helpful, then you'll also find this video helpful, which covers some of the same topics, but is made specifically for parents, not coaches.